12 flash floods. Mother Nature is angry, caught on camera. When you see the footage we've got for you, you will not be able to believe what you're seeing. When Mother Nature's not in a good mood, she can be breathtaking, but that's not always the case. In today's video, we take a look at 12 horrifying flash floods that were caught on camera and that demonstrate the incredible strength and devastation that nature is capable of. Get ready to be astounded as well as shaken to your very core. Because the flood has pushed the surrounding area to its maximum capacity, the only safe place to be is on top of the building and waiting for the water to recede into the drains, while the water flow is so intense that it is impossible to even take a step outside. Imagine being unable to leave your home because the floodwaters below are so intense that you're unable to even step outside while you're stranded on your roof. It's possible that you've never witnessed something quite like what was about to take place here. A devastating flash flood struck the town suddenly and with enormous power. The water began to stream into the streets, quickly rising and destroying anything that was in its course. Within a matter of minutes, the water began to seep into homes and businesses, and some people made frantic efforts to stop the flood by stacking sandbags in front of their properties. But it was all for nothing. When the water level continued to rise, it eventually began to break through the windows of homes, which caused the residents' furniture and other possessions to be washed out into the street. Some unfortunate drivers found themselves stuck inside their vehicles after the swiftly moving water soon devoured their vehicles. They were unable to escape. The water that's coming off of the mountains is so ferocious, and it's causing all the objects that are down there, whether they are buildings or trees, to be destroyed due to the force of the water. The inconvenience that flash floods cause is just too much. It's incredibly depressing to see it play out. The clouds suddenly broke apart and the rain immediately began to fall in sheets. The water swiftly transformed the dusty roads into muddy rivers, and the residents of the area hurried to take shelter inside their homes as the situation worsened. After a while, water started coming inside the house, and it quickly filled up almost half the space. This prompted people to go to the rooftops of their various homes. The situation in the disaster was getting worse by the minute. The natural world may be quite terrifying. Because of the strength of the flood waters, the hotel was completely obliterated and reduced to shattered fragments. According to the testimonies provided by the witnesses, the oncoming water from the flood surged in with such force that it resembled a massive wave that encompassed the whole structure. The force of the water was so great that it not only destroyed the hotel, but it also carried away everything in its path, including automobiles, trees, and rocks. Heavy rains were responsible for the flash flood, which swiftly developed into a rushing torrent throughout the streets. The city was completely engulfed by the flood waters, which resulted in significant destruction and damage. Everything that was in the path of the flood was affected to a disproportionately high degree. The number of fatalities was estimated to be somewhere around 230,000, and the disaster had an impact on millions of people's lives. The tremendous waves were responsible for the devastation of entire coastal settlements, as well as the destruction of countless buildings, including residences, hotels, and places of commerce. Several areas were left without access to clean water, food, or medical supplies, and the infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and power lines, was seriously damaged. The floodwaters rose with alarming force, like a tidal wave, and swept across the area. The ground trembled with the force of the water as it pushed ahead, destroying everything in its path. A big house stood in the path of the roaring water in the midst of the mayhem. The residents had barely had time to flee before the water smashed against the house's walls with a thunderous boom. As the water slammed against the home, it rocked fiercely, threatening to break it apart. Water began to pour through the crevices of the walls and flooring within seconds, filling the house with a thundering surge. The contents of the house were swept away in an instant, crashing into one another in a frenzied ballet of ruin. The flood level increased at an alarming rate, engulfing everything in its path as it rose higher and higher. The evacuated residents watched in terror as the house was devoured by the flood. The once grand edifice was now scarcely visible beneath the murky waters that had devoured it whole. The roaring waves and the screams of those who had just lost everything were the only sounds. The house was nowhere to be found after the flood waters receded. It had been grabbed by the water and consumed by the flood's strength. Nothing remained of the once beautiful structure, other than recollections of the dreadful moment it was swallowed up by the roaring seas, leaving a void of misery and disaster in its wake. The flood was unlike anything else anyone had ever witnessed. It was a huge natural force, a tidal wave of ruin that had engulfed entire neighborhoods. The water had risen so high that it had engulfed even the tallest structures, leaving nothing but destruction and terror in its wake. A large house sitting on the top of a hill was one such structure. The locals believed they were protected from the rushing seas, but they were mistaken. Within seconds, the water had surged with a deafening roar towards the home, uprooting the foundation and carrying it away with the force of a freight train. The home was ripped from its foundations and tossed into the raging waters, falling end over end as the river took it forward. The residents, who had barely had time to flee, watched in despair as the river took up their home. The house's structure crumbled under the huge strain of the water, splintering into pieces as it was pounded by debris and other torn-apart buildings. The flash floods caused significant destruction after heavy rainfall that continued for several hours, leading to the disaster. Many people were caught off guard by the swift rise of the flood waters and drowned when they tried to flee. Many people were stranded in their cars and washed away by the swiftly rising waters as the water level rose rapidly. This catastrophic flood shows how strong and unpredictable natural disasters can be. While it's hard to completely eliminate the possibility of flooding, there are steps that may be taken to lessen the likelihood of floods and lessen the impact of floods when they do occur. Heavy rainfall that continued for many days was the cause of this flood. This caused rivers and streams to overrun their banks, which in turn led to flash floods that caused major damage to homes, businesses, and infrastructure. The flood was caused by excessive rainfall. The flood waters were so ferocious and powerful that they swept away entire structures, including cars, trucks, and other vehicles that were carried away by the surging water. The flood waters were so intense and powerful that they swept away entire buildings. The water looks so furious and deadly here, doesn't it? Water is indeed one powerful element. We know when a river's in flood stage, the water flowing through it is significantly faster than normal, but still, it's difficult to imagine the force of water until you have actually experienced it for yourself. And you can see it in this footage, the pressure that the water gives. The region, which resulted in significant flooding and destruction, the homeowner and their family were forced to leave their home as the floodwaters continue to rise. The disruption that can be caused by widespread flooding can be substantial and last for an extended period of time. Homeowners who reside in locations that are prone to flooding should take precautions to protect their properties, such as investing in flood insurance, elevating electrical systems and appliances to a higher level, and formulating an evacuation strategy. That's all for the video today. If you want to watch more such videos, you know where to come now. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and please subscribe to our channel.